I think that in terms of critics whose work I follow, there's a writer named Carrie Jacobs who writes often for Metropolis, who writes about design, and I always enjoy reading her. Depending on the subject, I may be more or less engaged. I read the different New York Times critics, but I don't feel like I have an affinity for any one of them, the art critics. And I think that in architecture, there is no one whose work I really follow closely. We have a critic at the LA Times now who's very good, and he's very engaged in urban issues, and I think that's really important, so that it's not all about individual buildings, it's more about the city itself and its urban fabric and how it can change and how it is changing. And I think those larger issues are more interesting to me than sort of critiques of a particular building or a particular exhibition. I do read our local people about the different exhibitions in the galleries and museums. I wouldn't say I follow any one of them in particular. We have a new writer who writes a blog for the LA Times who's fantastic. His name is Carolina Miranda, and she wrote a wonderful poem about the Jeff Koons show. She wrote a wonderful poem about the Jeff Koons show at the Whitney, in which she took words from The Guardian, and the Brits always have great words, and put them all together into this hilarious, almost Ogden Nash-like poem. It was great. So I love to read her because she's fun, and she's also broad. She writes about many different kinds of things. I guess I don't feel like I have a sort of touchstone group of critics. There are people whose work I'm interested in. There's no one who's sort of the bellwether for me.